The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, Recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to today's edition of the Hotline Show. My name, as always, is Roger Studiabwe, and every Monday evening, we made it a point to always appear and talk about a number of issues that are national importance, And many of the times I am here in conversation with senior citizens, people who have lived these experiences, and those who've particularly had or appeared in those spaces that give them the legitimacy to be able to talk about some of these things. And so that is what we're here today to do today. You can find us on the Alternative Uganda social media page on Facebook and Digitalk TV, and later on many of these videos are uploaded on our YouTube channel, the Alternative Uganda. You can find the conversations there. Please make it a point to always put their comment. We'll be able to review them in due time. If you have at least good points, we'll have to revisit them and get some advice on some of them. And of course, as we host here, many of the times we host the same guests. It is easy then to ask some of those questions that you might pose. Be able to be a part of the conversation. Go to Facebook right now, and then you can put in your comment. I'll read it at some point. You can put in a question. Let's have a conversation. Sometimes we're not here because we're the custodians of knowledge, but because we also are here to learn from each other, and sometimes you have some information that we might need. So thank you for being a part of the conversation today. I have Mr. Ochieno Joseph, who is one of the leaders of the Uganda People's Congress, and today we have not been joined by Major Awichpola, who is in some official party duties. He's out of town. He wasn't able to join us today, but we're going to carry on, and we're going to be talking about a number of issues, particularly to do with corruption in particular. We're going to look at Parliament as it stands, and many of the issues that are pertaining to political parties now that we are moving towards 2026 elections. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you so much for making the time. We do appreciate. Also, I want to apologize that we were not able to have this conversation last week. There were, again, some issues that could not allow us to have that conversation. And owing to that, I wanted to ask you to begin with what has been the some of the issues that have stood out for you in the last 2 weeks running up to today. Some of the things that stood out for you in the political space largely, or anything out of that. Yeah.
Yeah, Roger, thank you very much for having me. I must say that I missed this place last week, and you being sharp, and by the way, you're very smart, except just a little scintilla of yellow that kills it. But
yellow is just a color.
You're a fantastic anchor. So you're also then being very smart, meaning diplomatic, that some of the challenges that lead to these programs not airing technical issues, and in many cases the things and matters beyond yourselves. I want to tell the viewers here that I have, as a regular here, I have reasonable understanding, reasonable knowledge of this very excellent a channel, very excellent television that needs massive support, digital, but also comes with part of the challenges facing the nation, a part of broader infrastructure issues, which are basically political, which is basically leadership, which is basically direct results of the failures of 38 years of NRA to set up sufficient infrastructure to enable businesses to thrive, to enable networks like yours, which is predominantly run and driven by innovative young people, to thrive and to thrive successfully, but also in so doing to enable this to be the destination of choice for young people online as an alternative space, as it were. But that said, also, I naturally, you can see I'm also very smart,
Yes,
competitively smart, and I am delighted that when I was coming into the studios, I got two people saying that, oh, they thought I looked a little bit informal because I didn't have a tie and a jacket, but they thought I was still sufficiently smart. And of course, guess what? Because of UPC. So yes, while I was away in the last week or so, I went around the country, something that I would normally do. I attended a few funerals, as I would normally do. One of the last for the other weekend was the father of the outgoing Inspector General of Police. You guys call him IGP, but in my time we just basically call him Inspector General, Ochieno Joseph, who's retired seemingly with reasonable grace from the circles there, whatever public opinion of the police, and so therefore the politicized office of his. So congratulations to him, particularly leaving office and people not hitting drums in the streets of Kampala like they did for Kaihoro.
We are glad.
You know, but what is important to you is that in that event, Ochieno Joseph's father apparently was one of only 2 African engineers who were part of the Uganda Railways extension programs, including the extension of the rail networks that are bossed about here from 1962 to 66, from Soroti, Lira, Gulu, then to Pakwach. And apparently he's the one who drove the train that drove in the presidents of Uganda, Dr. Milton Obote, Julius Nyerere, and then Kenyan president, then Jomo Kenyatta,
yes.
you know, in that inaugural ride down there. And this one of the stories I'm told is that he was told that, you know, he had the responsibility of driving 3 presidents. So if he did not do so successfully, of course, you know, the implications is huge. So that's part of the fun. But so therefore, actually, very important person. But that is not about him and Ochieno Joseph. That's about him and the possibilities of this country post-independence. That we had people like this who were not graduates. The engineers were not graduates, but they were to train in the railway engineering, railway training school. He was among the 2 of 5. The other 3 were apparently white guys. And so I'm saying, what went wrong as a country? And seated at Ochieno Joseph's home and homestead, as it were, and opposite it is Abweli Primary School, where I know that we went dancing there when I was in high school. But then these are the schools that those days, you say which primary school got how many grades. I'm not boring, am I?
No.
Abweli Primary School, Achilet Primary School, Kisoko Primary School, Kisoko Boys, and then Kisoko Girls, where my sister taught, Nagongara Girls, Tesera Girls, which is now remaining the relative primary school. My Nagongara Boys is gone, so don't embarrass me, kind of stuff. So it was about which schools were getting how many top first grades. And those first grades would come from Abweli, and they would go to Budo. They would come from Kisoko, and then they would go to Namilyango. They would come from then Paya, and then maybe in this case they will possibly go to Uanali, as if you don't know what in this way. Kind of. And I'm saying, this is a passing of a generation, a fading of very serious history that we sort of like miss. Of course, we're burying the father, and the week, unfortunately for Ochieno Joseph, the father died in the week before he handed over in his own retirement. So even Okoth Chola is now retiring. So generations are fading, history is fading off, records are fading, but these are predominantly very good, excellent records. That some of you young guys don't believe, Roger, in many cases, you don't believe that some of these things can happen when we, the Uchienos, if UPC tell you. Many people of your generation don't know they existed. Many of the people of this generation don't know people complete engineering. I've got an engineer who's a mechanic, my mechanic. Granted, he's relatively successful because he's doing motor vehicle mechanics. But why should somebody get an engineering degree and struggle in the streets? And here you look at Okoth Chola's father. That said, though, then is the fact that this guy lived very long, and it's a family that lived very long, and so talk about health services. And then people then talked about the integrity of Okoth Chola, the person, forget about anything else that happened, the police. And I said, wow, you know, in this country, I know we're going to be discussing corruption.
Yes.
Let me not go into the areas where I would need this authority, like including spokesperson. Why should he, shouldn't he? Why did he not extend his terms? Because apparently he refused to have his term extended. Things like that. But you see, men, whatever their shortcomings, and women in this country, there's some men and women in this country with who are huge integrity. Men and women of a certain kind of upbringing. Men and women who, you know, if you see some of the other extremes happening with the hippinettes, you see a group of animals versus actually an average ordinary citizens of this country. So somewhere midway this country is possible. Then of course then come last week, with the unfortunate event that you're not able to host me, I was delighted to find myself in northern Uganda on many other issues. But I decided to go to Dokolo, where there's a merging by-elections. Dokolo is the constituency where by-elections taking place later this week to replace Cecilia Gual, my former leader, who then left and stood as an independent, then went on to join FDC. And of course, she got a national funeral, so it was a fairly big thing for Cecilia and for the family. But whatever the case, that by-election is taking place this week. Dokolo and Molata, now 2 districts, turns out, were one constituency in 1980. One constituency. Dokolo, it was called Lira South. It was called Lira South. So you can see how far NR has taken us down the shambles. So there are now 2 districts. Now, the member of parliament then for Lira South happens to be my cousin at the time, Terry Dongo Duka, then only female member of parliament. And I can clap about that, but you know, it's also about a seasonal thing. So, and Deputy Minister for Health. In there, I was being told by the locals, including one of the district chairpersons, that look, what Teddy did as a member of parliament, like opening a Molata secondary school, Dokolo secondary school, come to many of them, and then all the schools getting Tata lorries, farmers getting tractors, not farmers because the UPC was predominantly UPC area, you know, but that's what happened across the country. And so these guys are saying, what their area member of parliament at the time, female area member of parliament, a direct election member of parliament did between 1981 and 85. No member of parliament to date has done, and now there are about 7, 8 members of parliament, with six members of parliament. I said these are 2 districts, but no member of parliament has done what this lady did just within 4.5 years. So it is credit to the lady, but credit to the political party that the lady represented. Of course, granted it was a governing political party. NRA guys can say, of course, that NRA is governing, but where the Kotuvongs and many of these other people who are NRA. In any case, actually, a Molata, one MP is FDC, another one's NRA, then the district one is NRA. What are they doing? Rogers, I go around the country and experience these things, and I still come back and say to you, young men, you Ugandans, wake up. Because actually very irritating, it is shocking, but in many cases also quite scary. These are real things. Anyway, while I was at my hotel, in Dokolo, power went off, the whole of Dokolo. And in that hotel, the place was so dark that luckily enough, I had a candle, which kind of thing I've been troubling for quite some time.
Yes.
But that evening, I was supposed to give, to lead, I was a guest on a Twitter
Space. Yes.
Twitter space by fantastic young leaders of this country. Luckily enough, the Twitter space did not happen because the person who was leading in it delayed in a particular lecture and sort of, they had agreed by about 6:30 not to do so. So it was 7:30 not to do so. So I was stressed. I had to go around to town to buy these alternative lamps. Thankfully, I've got a power bank to sort out my machine and my battery and everything else. And I'm saying, this day and age, but also coincidentally in Dokolo, and coincidentally there's an ongoing by-election. So do the citizens of this country know this? Do the citizens of Dokolo understand this? And of course, if they did, they would vote for a UPC candidate 100%. Rogers, they would vote for a UPC candidate 100%. Thankfully, interestingly, just to conclude in context, the member of parliament for Dokolo was amongst those people who were elected 100%. See, I mean, these were the unopposed. She was amongst the unopposed because not Dokolo, it was then Lira South, which was called, you can call it broader, Kyoga sub-region. She was amongst the unopposed members because once she got the UPC ticket, DP did not field the candidate, poor DP, because they had no candidate who had of a name in Lira South. Nor did NRA, Museveni could lose so badly in Mbarara North. It was not South, Mbarara North. How could he get a candidate in Lira South? So he didn't get a candidate. And the other political party was a CP, a Conservative Party. So that's the context. So in other words, elections came with UPC having 100% control of Dokolo. That, I mean, Dokolo and Molata, Lira South, as a sub-region. If that's the case, then there is no reason why Cecilia Gual, who was elected because of her personality, her national fame and known, basically she was not a bad person. And beyond that, of course, the fact that some people thought that maybe the issue she had with the late president and UPC was that she was treated badly. I was there, I can tell you authoritatively. The difference was on principle. Both of them are passed. I can tell you that no, I knew, and it was not Obote's mistake. Obote was the president and he did the right thing, and it was a constitutional matter. Constitutional matter that now links between Cecilia and Obote and Cecilia and Akena. Because if it was the case that Obote was simply saying that we can't field the candidate as UPC when political parties were banned. Those were really the disputes. And then some other issues that I think I reserve maybe for my memos, but some of this was also still too soon for Cecilia to talk about some of them. But she was a great leader, and that's how it happened. Meaning, therefore, today, the expectations are, I know you're still going to ask me, but I'm just giving a quick brief. I'm a very bad guest.
Yes, no, it's okay.
To tell you this, that look, I went to 3 rallies. I went to give one long radio interview, and I was in a talk show panel. Those are 2 radio programs. And in the 3 rallies that I went around, I'm reasonably confident that come the day of the elections, quite rightly, Sarah Aguti Nyankori should carry the day and win that seat for UPC. And primarily on the basis of the background I've given you, there's no reason why she shouldn't. But that said, she's a fantastic candidate anyway.
Okay. I have 2 questions. One I'm going to ask a bit later. Just, you hinted on the fact that if it were UPC, I'm going back to the scenario where electricity disappears and literally everything stagnates. To the people who are the locals, there are chances it's a normal business. There was no shock, like it's expected.
Yes.
So it sort of seemed alien to someone who had just come there. Do you think that the people of Uganda, and that's not just a Dokolo, do you think the people of Uganda are getting less because they do not know better?
Are getting less in what way?
In sort of service delivery. For example, if I come from Kampala to
I see.
And go to, is it maybe they are not demanding more because they do not know
that is
better?
actually one. That's a very important point. The people of Uganda are being shortchanged by this regime because the regime has designed it deliberately to suck them while the regime is sucking in the Republic of Uganda's resources. The regime is doing pineti on our national resources. And doing pineti directly at the expense of the citizens. So people partly don't know. But there's also an element of indifference and ignorance where people think that pineti is just that money and that land from Entebbe. They actually don't know the implications basically from the national coffers. People don't, so most of these corruption things, including the scandals in the National Assembly, in Parliament, in Museveni's office, and across the departments, including local government. These crude, rude-looking guys, I told some Enery guy this morning on my way to Entebbe, who were trying to cross into the main road. Me, I drive very nicely, by the way, very smartly. And you should learn how to drive properly because it's good manners, and we do that as UPC. So this guy came and stopped. So all these things, people don't know it's actually their money. People don't know, Rogers, is their money. So there's ignorance. But also that's the reason why I introduced it the way I did, was to tell you that most people genuinely don't know that it is possible to get the service. I've got actually education, and I circulated something yesterday, where Makerere University in 1962 at independence, Makerere had 888, I just need to clarify those figures, re-establish, 888 students, 1962. By 1985, we had 5,500 students at Makerere University. By then I hadn't joined, so by the time I joined 1990, later 95, if the figures come in, possibly about 6,000, or possibly just under 6,000. But even then, all the students in Makerere University were government sponsored.
All?
Okay. All the students in Makerere University, public university, were all public sponsored. One.
Sort of education was free.
Precisely, and I've said it in your program again and again
Yeah,
and
yeah,
again.
yeah.
But Uganda is also one of the things. Is it ENT program? We need to have a special ENT.
It's
Uganda to sort out our ears, perhaps. So all of it free. At the same time, all post senior 4 institutions, whether it's technical education schools, Chambogos, Nakawas, those UCCs that we opened for people in Kabbalah, but these days they abuse us, doesn't matter for them, Adukos, all of them were free. But let me bring you back to Makerere University. So Makerere in 1985 had student intake total 5,500, all of them free. Today, as I understand it, there is this dubious state house government thing. That thing really is. At a future UPC government, I will dissolve that thing 100% straight away and return this to the Ministry of Education. Okay? Today, there are 4,000. And students, all the students who go into state house, so-called state house government thing, all of them sing Nyo, because they think the money is coming from Museveni's grandfather's pocket. Did you get it? So, 4,000. So basically, 1985, the 5,500, today is 4,000 less. And even that 4,000, and then in those 5,500, you know what it is? You got all the tuition, you got all the money, you got paid boom, you got fed, you got transport. The other day I was at Makerere University guest house having a certain meeting with certain people, and one of the other things was, I was asking about the university bookshop. The books, you got all the textbooks free, and then you get your transport allowance. I've told this program, and you're paying the salary called Boom. And Boom was so much money that today some people would go ahead and marry their third wives with. By the way, I don't encourage more than one wife. And in fact, by the way, I'm a man who believes 100% in the family. One man, one woman, blessed by a respective religious institution, whichever you do. That's basically what I believe.
Yeah, I asked that question because last week I was meeting some head of a diplomatic mission here in Uganda, and our conversation was largely about the justice sector and how it's run with all of its attendant, support systems and whatnot. And one of those people, head of that mission, was like, one thing I do not understand about Ugandans is why they do not ask these questions. Like, why are you people comfortable? Like, how do you see it? And you deserve this thing. You rightfully do. Why don't you ask?
It was very well orchestrated, but I know, and maybe, I'm sorry, and you come back to it. It was very well orchestrated. Museveni came and killed political parties and killed opponents, basically wrapped them up, muzzled the citizens and then wrapped fear. And so for a long time, Museveni convinced people, starting with Lowero, that he was their God. And so much that he was their God that if your God comes and God says kneel down, you see some churches, make double tithe, you kneel, make whatever, yes sir, I'm rushing kind of stuff. So people did everything Museveni wanted while he was perfecting his art, fixing himself. So over a period of time, fast forward to where we are, that's why I talked about Okoth Chola's father also, as I said. So it's not a short time, Rogers, 38 years older than you. So meaning in your case, you don't know anything else. That's why I'm trying to emphasize these things. So to the diplomatic, that diplomat, people genuinely don't know. And of course, in their countries, things journalists like you critique. Columnists like myself, we write objectively. You remember my column in the Monitor has suffered a little bit of headache. So these days you don't see it for different reasons. So partly for the same reasons. So citizens are substantially informed, not necessarily sufficiently. It's extraordinary actually when I'm in my other spaces elsewhere, particularly in the UK, we think that citizens is sufficiently involved. We would like to have them participate more, like particularly young people. But in relative terms, at least they are there. MPs are held accountable. Councillors are held accountable. And I was even telling one of my nieces the other day that actually mere shopkeeper, would not want his shop to be associated with arrogance or tiny little minor theft. What about a big company? Big companies like this one is associated with Pineti, whether it's about soda or tea, whatever kind of stuff. They wouldn't. So that's what happens elsewhere. But here, because it has taken such a long time, then bring in this politics of fear on the one hand. So people are coyed. Most of the people I meet, and actually in this tour of the North, I found it very interesting because I was really angry with people from the North. But how can Museveni humiliate, embarrass, create, organize the rape and all this kind of steal your cattle? I was meeting an elder from Lango who was telling me that lest I forget, certain families in Lango did not have tens of cattle, herds of cattle. They did not have hundreds of herds of cattle. He said they had thousands. And they counted for me 4 families in one particular small one of the 2 districts. I don't want to go into very specific. Thousands of cattle. Today, to find a family with hundreds of cattle, it's neither here nor there. And then you walk through and you see how the communities are wallowing in poverty. Now, their children do not know. Their children don't know. So on the one hand, there is that poverty in the extreme. Then on the other is patronage. So people now, look at my Tororo. When the campaign, and by the way, when the campaign over Nagongera Road came, even a major politician, maybe if I give more detail, they will get to know, and the guys sort of, I'm trying to calm them down. A major politician in Tororo, you guys, shame on you guys. A major politician in Tororo said, look, I know President Museveni. He knows about this Nagongera Road. And, if he hears that you people are demonstrating against Nagongera Road, you will never get it. A major politician, well-read, very high-level place, somebody whom I respect. Well, at least I respected more than
before that.
So if people, so in other words, you don't complain to Museveni lest he whips you, but you don't complain to Museveni lest you get nothing. Lest you not get anything rather. So fear on the one hand and patronage. So you have to beg. And that's why I'm now trying to ask now, you people, the people in Nagongera, it's taken you 38 years, begging and giving Museveni a free vote, zombies.
Close your eyes and take.
So when are you going to get it? The people in the North, this is the good news, and I caution them, people in the North are waking up. By the way, across the streets of Dokolo, Amolata, parts of Lira, in fact, predominant part of Langa, I'm quite impressed. Although I know there are other underlying issues, people are waking up and people are genuinely tired. Grassroots, in terms of the level of the much more rural peasantry, so the peasants who are not my age and above are some of them are not quite informed. You know, so some of those are wrapped in both ignorance and poverty. You know, the way Museveni wanted them. But actually, people are generally waking up and are simply saying no. And it won't be long before Mr. Museveni begins to seek to impress Ugandans if he is to get anything from Ugandans.
The other question I had that you did mention that if this was a time for the UPC, for example, an issue such as that happened when you were in Dolkolo would not have happened.
No.
And I don't want to call it a point of comparison, but I wanted to, just for information purposes, at the time when the UPC was had the leadership of the country,
government, yes.
How much was like power penetration on many of these services in the lower districts like those?
It was less. It was less. Power penetration was less than this. You know, if you're talking per capita, rather even per capita, power penetration was less. The population was smaller. The demand was also relatively smaller. But on the basis of that, it was by and large and absolutely okay. But what has happened? Power penetration has increased. Dams, have allegedly improved. We export power to Rwanda. We export power to Kenya. We export power to South Sudan. You do not find any of this nonsense happening in Kampala and in Dokolo. In those places, what has happened? I know that if your question is sort of nuanced, I will link it to what I've told you about these educational things, including people who say health services. Oh, they were providing education for so many people, but now the population has gone more than 5 times. Yes, the economy has more than quadrupled. The other day, Museveni Boston, the first time I saw Museveni wanting to start the neck was a joke with me. Son of I don't know who kind of, I'm no joke. For us, we more than triple the economy. Made it more than 10 times 10. So you make the economy more than 10 times. So where is it? So I came from Dokolo. I came from Amolata. I came via Nakasongola. And the other day I went via Kaberamaido and Soroti and Kumi, and Baale and Tororo. No, I do not see, and I did see, and I don't see Museveni's economy. You can't see an economy when you drive 1 mile and you get a Mabati house by accident. You can't see an economy when you drive 1 mile and the place is in darkness, talk power. You can't see an economy where people are just crudely riding local bicycles. And most of those people, as I said, are people whose cattle you stole, and if you didn't steal, you're absolutely responsible for their disappearances. You can't see an economy when, including today I've got 3 requests for people who are in hospital, on one when they need medical care. You can't call that an economy. Whose economy? Pineti? Pineti and who? You can't call that an economy when every day, because I talk to many people, and I deliberately talk to young people, every day, this starts. Every day I talk to young people, whether at a supermarket, at a fuel station, at an airport, even some of these other ones in mini roadblocks, things like that. I talk to young people and you ask them questions. Most of them will have dropped from senior 2. The other one dropped off from senior P7, another one from senior 4, including I met one, I think, in a Molotov, who dropped off, beautiful lady, dropped off at senior 5. She's now doing hairdressing. And in all cases, my father died. In all cases, my mother loaned me a 7. In all cases, school fees. Did you know that under UPC administration, all orphans got free education?
Really?
Did you know that under UPC, all children of men and women in services, meaning in armed forces, in this case, in services, got free education? What Museveni has done to this country is criminal. And I'm not surprised that diplomat is saying, unfortunately, I hope that diplomat is not one of these diplomats who helped Museveni and Kagame and their group, so-called new breed of African leaders, to perfect their art in this region when they're busy breaking, particularly the north and east of this country. I really hope not.
Okay. It was a she actually, but she seemed quite disturbed that people are okay settling for what they have. But
sometimes,
anyways,
I get that, but if you don't mind, sometimes I get that actually including from diplomatic circles and also non-Ugandan friends. But some of these other people become very patronizing. But genuinely, we must now let me agree with her. You know, Bambi. Those people really sympathize with us. Ugandans have been cast, but then carry it.
No, I wanted to ask you, again, there's a Dokolo by-election going on.
Yeah.
But in less than 2 years, we're going to have the general elections.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to just throw a bit of light in the party of the UPC that you come from, and one that you're potentially one of the leaders. How are you preparing to get to that space? Because the court pronounced what it pronounced. The leadership still, you know, office is apparently legally still being occupied by Kenya. How are you preparing to get into that space? Time doesn't seem to wait.
No, we do not have time. It's a difficult time for us as political parties, and particularly because my experience coming from, again, Dokolo and the recent journeys of mine, Doto towards north and east, suggests there's actually huge opportunities for us as alternative political parties and organizations to NRA. I'll take you back to Dokolo again very briefly. One of the things that I found very interesting was I personally got 3 people who came to me and sort of converted to UPC just around meeting me. And all those 3 were from NRA.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
2 from Dokolo, and this I'm saying, 2 from Dokolo, 1 in Amolata the previous evening. 3 people. Now the 4th person came from FDC and had returned to the party of his father from NRM, rather from FDC. And he told me that he had joined FDC because they followed Cecil Oba. Now, these are fairly serious people. You know, they're not junior people, they're fairly serious people. So that's why I told you that the country is awakening. So people feel that they've been taken so much for a ride. Now, interestingly, the 5th one, which is the 4th one under NRA, is I met a local councillor. That is funny, actually. I don't know what you did. I met a local councillor who came with the NRA thing for their registration. So he came, of course, nobody teased this guy. He said, "You're a very handsome man. Why are you having this?" I said, "Oh, you know, we are doing this thing, I'm doing this work here." Then he said, "Oh, we just have to do it." He said, "Oh, we just have to do it." But my heart is not, seriously, he said, "My heart is not this." And he said he was quite genuine because there's a number of other people there who were workers in the environment, which I was. He was very honest about it. We're just in these things, and we just have to do it like this. And then he said that, "Oh, and for this registration thing, people basically doing it almost for fun." So the enthusiasm generally is not there. So some of those other local leaders are also neither here nor there. But I must say that, say, even in my places, in Tororo, where I get more positive response today than maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, not as high as the North, I must say, the people who are still hanging on to NRA, the argument is very clear, direct patronage. There is still a bit of fear, but most of it is people are telling you that we are here to eat. And people think that you cannot get anywhere unless you associate with NRA. Now, some of your generation guys, and this I find particularly in my Eastern, so to very objectively, and very openly, I find it predominantly in my East. It's a national thing, but in my place I sort of get frustrated. I find some young, decent professionals, well-educated, in many cases people who cannot go hungry, sticking around because they want to secure their jobs and they want to see opportunities to come. There is a very mild scramble for, this is a topic for another time, maybe not even for this program. There's some mild scramble in this country where people recognize that Museveni's time is nearly nay, and that when that happens, they need to find themselves either with fuel to take them to Tororo or or to have bought their houses or their plot next to Pinetis, because you know not what's going to happen next time. But thirdly, that because this is a thieving environment, you don't want change to happen before you also thieve. After all, the thieving in many cases just getting nothing for nothing and 100% very quickly. So that's what is happening. Now, I am emphasizing that because it's generally an important thing that people need to stop that. People need to wake up because this thing has got implications. Just like some dreams and some prayers, you can dream and pray for a very long time, and these dreams don't necessarily come true. And so there's no guarantee that your prayers would work. But most importantly, I have also had, again another time in the last 1 week, where I had a number of family illnesses. And so I have had very close family members, hospitalized. And you see how broken the system is. That somebody merely has typhoid, just like malaria, and you can't take them to local health facility. Now, just like that diplomat, right? And then you wonder, and even Ochieno takes them to a private clinic, and the following day they walk boasting that Ms. Ochieno of UPC, kind of stuff. Meaning that actually the burden of responsibility, that's why I'm linking this to your next question. I need to be angry enough to say no. But in my case, I hope I'm trying to do something. This needs to stop. Somebody is knocked off by a motorbike, and by the time the police come, is who coughs in money first, or better. An incident of mild, cheeky theft. You have to think twice before you seek the push for prosecution, because it's going to be much more burdensome business than basically sorting out a criminal issue, which makes me raise one quick thing that I learned today, this afternoon, that apparently is it the case as part of criminal justice, you're talking about, you're the lawyer, that if somebody stole something from you and then you took them to the police and they're taken to a cell, whose responsibility it is for, say, their health and food? Is it the case that you are the one who took them to a police cell, you're supposed to take the food to them?
No. It's the enforcement. I
have heard that in some spaces, particularly some police cells, that these guys tell the people, you are the one who's brought this thief. It's your responsibility to look after them. You're the ones who bring them food. They've been here for the last 2 days. They've not eaten anything. You should bring the food. If that is happening under NRA must be ashamed. The sooner NRA retires, the better for your children.
That had not had of many things that had done.
So then,
that would be funny, because now people would stop taking criminals to the police because I don't have the money to look after them.
Well, we need further verification, but tell us how broken the system is. But then, so finally, on the other question, I will make it brief, really, is that there is hope on the basis of my lived experience, the experience of referred. But there are huge challenges facing political parties and political parties. I think we've got huge challenges of leadership across the political divide. I see what's happening with my young friends in NUP. The challenges with our friends in FDC. I have said before, and that I wish FDC at its formation, their leaders returned to UPC or DP or joined either the political parties or the two. I think we would have had a much more cohesive, strengthened, localized opposition. Some of them until today would also still call UPC and DP sick, that they were sick at the time. The leaders who would call DP and UPC like that, particularly those who came from NRA, then they must be part of the problem. why we're here. But anyway, so I think that Museveni's timing is no joke, that he started his registration at the moment. Granted, they've got the resources, granted, I don't know whether his son is going to be the Secretary General, or they're going to share intelligence on whatever happens. But no, I think they're possibly doing the right thing in terms of timing for update of registers. But a future UPC administration, or a future UPC that in which I'm leader, I don't want to give too much out, but update of members' registrations might be a matter of routine. I've got a huge amount of experience, by the way, with other political parties, so I have an idea. So a UPC in which I'm in charge, the membership thing will not be an issue. It will not be this breaking news thing as if we're going to be lining up for salt and sugar granted for by, yeah?
Yeah, but it seems to sort of be like a readiness sort of practice to make sure that when that comes, maybe because of them they also have some primaries, so they need to know all of that. But
no, that's what I'm saying.
Even again,
it should not be like some event. Political operation,
it's not okay. In my case, it becomes an event for one particular reason, that we have opposition parties, the alternative parties, that are sort of expected to present, very good opposition or better ideas and guidance and what's not to vie for presidency. But do you feel now, you as one of the people in the opposition, that you are, these are trying to be ready? Do you feel like you are ready for 2026?
No, we are not. And I'm just saying that, look, as a matter of process, that if I was fully in charge of my political, that I hope we will at some stage, this thing should be a matter of course. As I said, I don't want to give too much procedural track, but to be very fair, in UPC, we're very open. Update of members register is a day-to-day process. So we must have, a sensible political party must have an up-to-date members register. Membership elapses when you do not pay your membership due, or membership elapses in case you're seen with penalty, membership elapses in case you've got a dubious record in Parliament, they withdraw your whip and then you're suspended, and membership elapses in case you slapped, if you're a public figure, you slapped, say, your wife. And I'm being very serious. If you've seen a leader of Uganda People's Congress and then I know that you've been involved in domestic violence or something like that, perhaps been rude, at a public school or possibly at a roadblock in an unreasonable way, I would seek disciplinary action against you. Why? Because you're bringing my party into disrepute. You see where I'm going?
Yes.
So at organized political parties, level of discipline must be very high. So if you're a non-member of Uganda People's Congress, leader of Uganda People's Congress, and you go to a funny club and you do funny things, I'm not saying you should not go to clubs. Yes, your membership will be in question, so you'll be subject to disciplinary action, maybe suspended, maybe warned. In many cases, possibly could be expelled, or suspended for 12 months, things like that. So if these are the things that are happening, then you see membership list is not like preparing for Lent. You go ahead and sin, go to thief public, and then come sign. By the way, talk about that man. The other day I went to a church in Tinda. Now I'm revealing to you. I went to a church in Tinda. Good service, fantastic service. But you get this multitude, I'm jealous. You get this multitude of very big cars, very beautiful ladies, very beautiful men and children, whatever. And they say, people are so nice in church on this day. I've ever written this on my Sunday call of about 10 years ago. And I was using the Mbuya church. And so you see, these guys are really, really very well presented, these Ugandans. So come to think of it, where do these guys go on Monday, like today? Honestly, where do these guys go on Monday?
They are more sinless ones on Sunday.
Yeah, and then the ones who break the traffic rules in the morning? Are they the ones who drive wrongly? But are they the ones who deny basic services in schools and public hospitals? Are they the ones who disappear and turn to ghost teachers? Who basically, where do they go? Now, I am challenging you guys. The diplomat has challenged us. You are so many. We see you guys on churches, and when I'm in church, I feel good. And I believe now this is also the holy month of Ramadan. Fantastic guys, Allah Akbar, But you guys, what do you do? Why do you leave it for the Ochienos of this world? Sometimes they even laugh at us. Roger, do I look awkward? Do I look awkward? Something's wrong with the Ochienos, because they expect us to sit down and to kneel. And that country is being killed. And you come from mosque on Friday, and in Muslim case you pray 5 times a day. Seriously? And for me, at least, I pray twice a day. Thank you, Jesus. But particularly, I saw you on Sunday. There are many in their hundreds, honestly, many. And I'm genuinely quite impressed. I'm not really taking moralist course. I'm very straight. Genuinely impressed. Nor am I patronizing anybody. Where do these people go on a Monday? So the diplomat is absolutely right. So if you are not part of the mathematics for the diplomat, then I might invoke my Bible and say, are you a hypocrite?
Okay. We're going to, in fact, on that note, we're going to just go in for a very short commercial break. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we want to talk about corruption, and we want to talk about this issue from both points. There are those in government, and there are also those that are in the opposition, but all of them, when they're speaking to many of us, they are telling us how the other side is promoting this. I've had, after the parliament exhibitions, I've had the Speaker of Parliament say the people who are behind the narratives of the exhibition are
jealous.
Pro-gay people. So that was the cover. Like, instead of answering questions that are genuinely being asked, even if they are wrong, prove it wrong, the approach is that, you know what, those people who are peddling all of those lies are pro-gay. Like, they run for excuses. And I've had those exhibitioners unearthed a few things even about the people in the opposition. And many of them have said those are the NRM propagandists. So everyone is sort of running off from responsibility. So we'll come back in the second hour. We want to understand which one of them is coming to justice with clean hands. Because, I mean, as the policy and principle stands, he who comes to justice comes with clean hands. We'll be shortly back.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome back from that very short commercial break. My name again is Roger Studiawe, and with me today in studio is Mr. Ochieno Joseph, one of the leaders for the Uganda People's Congress. I say one of the leaders because we are sort of in space.
We are the party of leadership, so
Yeah, so
we're endowed by leaders.
yeah, quite a multitude. So he's here today. We're talking about a number of issues that are happening currently. And one of the conversations I think we are going to have is, which was the foundation really, is one about corruption. Now, if you remember, was it in 2021 when the IGG report said that on an annual basis we lose about 10 trillion Uganda shillings to corruption? 10 trillion.
Yeah.
I don't know if people understand the magnitude of that amount. 10 trillion Uganda shillings. We lose that to corruption every single year, every single one of them. And
But
you
why
know,
don't you look annoyed? Why else?
because it has sort of become business. I just don't understand. And the thing is, everyone says it out openly. Everyone says there's corruption. And everyone knows it's like a public secret, there's corruption. But somehow it never goes away. Somehow no one ever deals with it. So we are in this time, we have the current exhibition that the point that we stopped at before we went to the break. We have the current exhibition. It has talked about the mismanagement of the National Assembly, the Parliament, the spending and all of this. And everyone seems to be pointing fingers and not owning or answering the questions. Why is it hard for Ugandans to answer when questions are being asked by the citizens?
Because we partly dealt with this, especially when we are talking about how we reached here. Citizens have been impoverished, abused, used, excessively exploited, dehumanized. In many cases, you've seen some of these cartoons that go around, that once people join NRA, their brains are pulled off. So you've seen that one. So if it's part of
The
that...
problem of corruption, though, is even more than the NRM itself.
No, because I'm giving context.
Okay.
So then if that is what happens when you join NRA, then what NRA has managed to do to the majority of Ugandan citizens is to corrupt their brains. Earlier I was trying to tell you, corrupting their ears and possibly therefore their eyes. So it's now a total madness of an entire nation. But before that, towards the conclusion of the first half of the program, you're making very serious allegations that, did you talk that one group of thieves are scheduling with homosexuals?
Yeah, well, one of them would say, okay, from the questions that were asked,
Yes.
largely a big part of it, which
Was it on record that somebody said that the people were concerned about violence? Was it Anita who said that?
It was Anita who said she actually even said it on a rally in Bukedi and the district where, I think one of the districts where the husband comes from, over, I think, the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, or even today, including today. She said that some of those who are peddling lies are pro-gay people. There are people who want to take us back, there are people who want to cause us problems.
To take us back to where?
That I do not understand. So all of that. So you understand, it's not. She's not owning up. She's not saying, look, this is, you have issues on this money and this spending and this spending and this spending, and this is how it came about, each one of them. The conclusion is that it's those who are peddling lies are coming from the other side.
So Anita is saying that she's anti-gay, yeah?
And as she said,
and because she's anti-gay, she's very clean, yeah?
Those who are peddling it are doing it because she's firm on the enforcement and what's not of the anti-homosexuality.
And so she knelt very nicely before the Pope. I was simply say, I wish it was when I was still young and she was still young, what a couple, So Anita, before the Pope. It's extremely unfortunate. For some reason, for a very long time, I had a soft spot for Anita. And for a very long time, I have opted to avoid being very heavy on female politicians. I don't know whether you've noticed it, actually. And so, they're really not politicians. These are people in politics. Politicians in UPC. So politicians don't abuse people. Politicians don't abuse politics. Politicians don't abuse their offices. Politicians use their convictions to deliver what their beliefs are and translate into society. So in NRA predominantly, there are people in politics and some opposition. Look, I think it's rather rich because Anita is amongst the topmost people in NRA.
Yes.
And she's the presiding officer of the National Assembly, an assembly which is now substantially rotten, and an assembly that, at its inauguration, I was very optimistic as using my other hat as a pundit. I had been one of those people who thought that because it was a relatively young assembly, in terms of age, that there's younger people going to the National Assembly, they're going to be a new generation, and very likely they're bound to hold the other arms of government to account. But they're dangerously turning out, if anything, to be the worst assembly in living memory. Now, for their presiding officer to simplistically take a swipe at homosexuals, I want you to tell her, and other people can tell Anita among you, that Ochieno of UPC knows that UPC members were raped in the north. UPC members were raped in the east. UPC members were burnt in a rail wagon, by the way, in Mukura, and Mukura is in Bokedia. Is it Bukera or Mongora? Mukura, where NRA roasted, burnt 100 people, over 100 people in the rail wagon in 1989. That's almost certainly, Mukura is almost certainly in Madera, but I stand corrected. But if it's not, it's very near Anita's home district. So those are NRA. So I don't know whether all of those people who are doing those things were gays or homosexuals. But finally, UPC members, because remember, Acholi was 90% UPC. NRA guys on record, and I've told you a program, and you can Google the reports on male rep in Acholi. Anybody listening can watch. Just Google male rep in Acholi. You'll find some very horrific stories, including admissions by people like Kiza Besiges and the Tinyefunzes of this world. So Acholi men were raped by NRA men. So the rapist, a man raping a man must be a homosexual. So who are they? So which NRA leader is talking like that? Nonsense, thinking that they forget this history. We're just trying to be diplomatic, and because we want to heal this country, so that give you younger guys hope and a possibility. Number one. Number two, which one is cruder? A homosexual, that region Podola used to call Nyasigweli, meaning, that's the word in the Podola. That always exists. In fact, for me, I was growing up, I didn't even understand it because it meant nothing for me and for us. So these guys existed those days. And it turns out that now under NRA, you rep, because part of the issue now is the NRA guys, Museveni and Anita, are very concerned about men having sexual relations with men and women having sexual relations with women, something that I don't support, and I found it about it myself. That's what I'm saying. But I'm not quite sure that in the thieving trillions of shillings, being destroyed and stolen under Museveni and Anita and Pineti, and so therefore almost certainly by them, the thing that we see, you can, in a very cheeky way, want to divert attention from those very crucial things about the futures of our country and our people. And then you simplified that people who do that is that. And for that reason, I have invoked my emotions to use this and take it back to Museveni and Anita. Where are the NRA men who raped Acholi men? Number one. Number two, what we find reviling is men sleeping with men, not so? So if you find men sleeping with men, they will even call it in love, meaning in their private rooms or wherever it is, yeah? We find it very reviling. We even want to hang them, not so? What about in this case, finding, Roger, somebody in your village whom you know is a normal man? In fact, many of those people were raped were people with grandparents. People who had lived their entire lives as heterosexuals, and they never met even somebody who's a homosexual. And then a homosexual or somebody comes and rapes them. Isn't that 1,000 times more crude? Meaning you subject a man who is heterosexual, a man who does not have sexual relationship with a man, and you rape him. Remember, rape. A man raping a woman. How crude and vile it is. A woman arguably raping a man, because that too happens. How cruel it is. But in this case, a man raping a man who's not a homosexual. A woman raping a woman who's not a homosexual. And this regime, man. These guys are cheek, man. They're cheek.
So in
Rogers, they're cheek.
We
are talking about a National Assembly in which Anita's office consumes huge amount of public money. And I've just told you that I've come from the north and from the east, and I have seen poverty, young man. Even today, I've just seen here, there's a note from somebody, and this is somebody from Central Region. It's just sent me a note, I've seen it here, down here, telling me that they've just been discharged from Lago Hospital, and some of the nuance suggestions is money. Here, in the last few minutes. I'll possibly show you at the end of it. So who are these NRA guys talking about? Pulling away the focus of how the National Assembly, Anita's offices are eating our public money, and Museveni's offices are eating our public money, when there are no drugs in hospitals. Hospitals, beds don't exist. Children, whole generations are being killed in families in terms of their futures. Who are they and where? It's extraordinary.
So we are in a situation where the leaders are sort of avoiding questions.
Yeah.
And also we have a large community of people who are sort of indifferent. The thing you were talking about is the Dokola, and when I was asking you a question that maybe people are not getting more because they do not know if they need that more or if they deserve it nonetheless. Yeah. In a situation where you ask a leader, literally the third top office of the land, and they avoid questions, and in our community where 90 or 80% of the people do not even know better, how do we come out of this kind of mess?
It is difficult, and let me just actually wrap up this as I think still. This is because actually it's very irritating. It's very irritating, and I feel actually quite touched about it. And I've just realized within the last few seconds that in part is because of my experience. I will tell you that there is a ferry. Granted, it's a ferry that was put, during the recent NRA administration, but of course, it was a ferry which was being designed anyway under the UP's government, and that's from Zengebe, Nakasongola, and crosses the other side to Amolata, which is now part of Lero South.
I think I've used that one.
Okay, yeah, and the 4 ferry services in the day, which are not bad. I'm campaigning for it to be added much more regular, possibly 5 to 6, and on Sunday there are only 2, and I'm suggesting that there should actually be 4. But granted, between those ferries, the roads are bad. Between the ferry, about nearly 20 kilometers to Nakasongola barracks, they've now leveled it up a bit. But I was always wondering, don't public figures pass this on? One time I was passing the ferry, and interestingly, I met one legislator. We were going opposite side, and we met, a friend of mine, I don't want to go into the details, whatever. And I said, you guys, you pass through these things? It's been leveled, this side of it. But from the other end, from Namasale, on the Lango side, up to Dokolo, there is no tarmac. So Amolatar is a district without tarmac. Dokolo is a district without new tarmac, except the resurfacing of the main road, Lira Soroti Road via Dokolo. What nonsense is NRA guys talking about?
The last time I was also in Dokolo, the roads were not that good, actually.
Indeed. So now I'll tell you something else, why I'm linking to the ferry. So in the ferry, the big ferry, the washrooms don't exist or not working, something. So I asked one guy who was just saying, because I was doing some reading, and so I asked this guy, who's one of the engineers, and said, it's not. They said, only 1 hour. And I said, what about if Diaring was somebody? But then the other. So if you go to Namasale, and you check the washrooms, in Zengebe, they've done one recent. These are basic services. So these things don't exist, and these are in the public mainstream. And people don't know, I'm answering, they don't know that there's a public, the state
has a responsibility
to provide for them as a matter of convenience. You don't want to feel like going for a short call in Namasale. You don't want to feel like going for a short call in Zengebe. you know. And guess what? You'll have come from Kampala, and guess what? You're going to wait for 1 hour for a ferry to come and another hour to cross the lake. I leave that as that. And then you look through those communities and look at the livelihoods. But finally, I watched the other day, I nearly got involved. The army, NRM, Museveni's army, chasing people in small boats. Apparently last week there was a meeting in Kampala involving the lake fishing. And I just really thought I would bring this as a by the way. Fishing on Lake Kyoga is now being confined as a preserve of Museveni and his guys, basically, you know, and some dubious businesses. So part of actually the campaign in Dokolo today is also about their lake. And the other day, some guy, I think it was a UPC member of parliament, actually saying in the rally in which it was that, you know, I think it was actually a Let's 5 chairman saying, look, you know, God knew he brought this lake here for you and brought you guys here for you and brought the fishes for you. So you can imagine a very poor community, relatively poor community. These guys had the thousands of cattle. NRA ate them, at least as I say, I'm a witness to NRA of the Karamojong of the South, you know, taking these cows, and you know, and NRA will have to prove otherwise, you know. So these guys have been impoverished, and so they used to go fishing. Even me, we went fishing. Well, it's very nice actually, going fishing down the road. Except I would always have problems when I come home to my parents, you know. So you go fishing. So we'll go fishing. So now you can't go fishing on the lake, which is basically part of your natural, part of your life, something that generation upon generation you've lived on the waters. So ordinary people can't go and fish. Part of it, somebody told me that, a soldier asking that, you know, do this thing because water is protected and secure taxes. So basically, we tax everything. The tax revenue is going into by maybe Uganda Revenue Authority or some other dubious authority, you know. But those things if they don't end up in hospital, if they don't end up in schools, if they don't end up with agricultural extension programs, if they don't end up in transportation networks, where does it end? And what are you? Meaning the Ugandan citizen has been outsourced, you know, to outsourced to I don't know, some funny gods.
I was disturbed by that response for particularly that reason, that we have leaders who so you can ask your questions, but they don't feel the obligation to answer you. Like it's not necessary that I must answer your questions anyway, so you may not. Better not ask anyways.
Roger, they don't do so, if you don't mind. They don't do so because the country is sufficiently mobilized. Political parties need to organize. Political parties and organizations need to organize. Civic society groups need to mobilize. Young people like yourselves, in or outside political parties, need to begin to demand and participate and say no. Stop thinking that leaving these conversations to the Ochienos. So these so-called leaders of yours are only doing that because they've been getting away with it for the last 38 years. By the way, Roger, that is the trick. And you see how simple the answers are. All you need to do, and by this, instead of throwing this question to us, now I'm abusing you. All you need to do as young Ugandans, okay, you join UPC in droves, because I'm asking to join UPC in droves. Join UPCs in droves, mobilize, organize, go to Dokolo and give NRA a bloody nose. I hope they give them a bloody nose this Thursday. You know, and let's come to Nagonga, mobilize and organize. Make sure that any election that takes place between today, including in Nyabushozi, you know, NRA is rejected. You will see how Museveni changes. But above all, if through part of this preparation, we resolve that we need change, because by the way, this morning I was thinking, Roger, I'm sorry, maybe I'm going around. This morning I was thinking that maybe we also need to change the narrative. I had deliberately, as one of the leaders in polity in this country, in a very long time, including managing opinion in the last 20, 25, 30 years, you know, you realize that I've been talking transition, national unity, reconciliation kind of stuff. That remains. But maybe I'm talking too much. I actually thought this morning that maybe we actually just need to amplify the message of change. Think about it, young man.
Do you know my worry? My worry is this, and yeah, as I was waiting to also ask you that, we have, as this has happened, and again, people asking questions, they've asked questions to both government leaders and those in opposition. Of course, at the end of the day, some of them are part of government.
Yeah.
So I mean the main administration, the party, NRM, but also those in the opposition. So when this has been asked on the ones in the opposition, they've literally simply played the same card as the other ones have done. They've looked the other way. They've simplified the issues that the people have prevented. You know, they've pushed it to another end, decided, you know what, those are literally the same way the other ones did. Those are, you know, regime propagandists, those as what. They've not addressed the point, and literally have not presented themselves as better alternatives and ones that people should feel like they respect. So even as we want to change that narrative that you propose, how do we do that with, one, the ones in government are already doing bad, but the ones that are aspiring to be in government are literally equally doing the same amount of bad? How do we change that? How do we then change that?
You hadn't been following the last 2 minutes of my submission. My submission. I was saying that people need to wake up, and people need to get involved. And in waking up and getting involved, it may be within NRA, and simply say no, like poor Anderson, who sometimes is very bossed and is caught up with him a little bit, but is, you know, whatever. Cecilia Gual once upon time said, I think in the 90s, she was talking about DEP, that is like housewives who thought that, co-wives, who thought that when UPC was being bashed, you know, they were okay, and then things got up with both of them. So, no, I am saying that first, we need leadership, and I said so. And that's why I told you that I think it's unfortunate, I think, that we have too many fronts. But that doesn't matter. I genuinely think that if we had amongst many of these people someone who's able to provide leadership, and leadership is not necessarily person or personality. Leadership can be about a message, enabler. But also, this leadership does not necessarily have to emerge, and you realize where I was going, from the largest political organization. In this case, largest, sometimes some of this artificial parliamentary thing, because right now, officially, NUP is the largest opposition by virtue of the parliamentary seat they got. I don't know, and maybe this may sound controversial, I don't know if there's a free and fair elections today in which Ochieno is involved. You know, in 3 years' time, we would have the same figures. I don't know, just quite honestly saying it. In any case, you know, we would be having the same conversation 10 years ago. People would say, you're crazy to say that FDC is not the next government, if not the largest opposition political party. You know, and you'll even be told that it will be impossible for another political party to emerge. I'm simply saying, people need to wake up and radically begin to ask questions as you're asking. Rally around an idea, and that's why I was bringing this thing about change. So now that I'm saying, therefore, that I think that perhaps we need to change the narrative and simply focus that we have had enough of NRA, we want something else. And let it be up to that leadership and to maybe you, Rogers, you know, to say that, look, this is what's happening, this is wrong. This is what happened before, and it is what should happen. But this is what ideally we want to happen. And this is where we are rallying ourselves. And where are you, Ugandans? I believe that rallying call, which nearly uncleared kind of setting, which nearly made people power, is sort of what we need. And why I brought it in response to excess, arrogant, NRA impunity is I believe that if we did it like that as open change and got a critical number of young Ugandans who are actually quite angry, including this one's in Damasali and Kyoga over their lake, as I'm telling you. And by the way, people are very angry. And one of the reasons why they give NRA a bloody nose is very likely about fishes and the lake. And Museveni will go ahead and say something else, you know? But it's thieving fish. But the disclaimer about fish, before I forget, was that apparently they say that these peasants are using fishing boats with the small hooks, so they catch smaller fish, so they you know, which, if true, the reality is that the ones that catch the big fishes boats are those fishing boats of dubious investors. You get what I'm saying? And the ones of the big investors are bigger boats, you know, more expensive, which peasants that UPC would give boats for nothing cannot afford. And you know who those peanut investors are. You get the point? A future UPC government would ensure that if the boats that peasants in a particular place like Namasale fishing cooperative, giving them some, 100, you get a boat, and if the boat is from China at 5 billion Uganda shillings, we will give you guys at 1 billion, 4 billion, there's an exemption, whatever, and then the other one at a reasonable tax exemption kind of thing, and as a cooperative, you pay over a period of time. And 5 billion is very easy to get. You can actually go and open Anita's wardrobe, and get it, Oh, there is the other NRA woman from Samia, she's a Mukedi. Is it that treasurer? They will call him some girl, and you get 5 billion very easily. You know what I'm trying to say? Your money. Now, 5 billion is a drop in the sea, from the 10 trillion that you started abusing me about earlier at the beginning of the program. That, they just steal air. So that really is what I'm saying. All that Ugandans need to do is to get away. That said, though, I think, to be fair, the challenge is the role of you guys in the media. The media houses are not robust enough. You're a good media house. You're doing a very great job. But as I said, sometimes you don't broadcast for many reasons. Your outreach capacity is still a bit challenged. I am involved in a number of one or two other related progressive media houses, but in terms of their outreach, they're not necessarily as good, and that's why I am delighted that people like Agatha Tuhaire and others opt for spaces which now these days reach penetratively a bigger audience. But that bigger audience does not. I don't know that of the people I met in Dokolo, I don't know what percentage have got access to this and have got access to the Twitter spaces. I don't know how many of those in Amolata. I don't know how many of those in actually even part of the 10 kilometers away from Tungamo town. But let me tell you something else. Apart from the penetration thing that we talked about electricity, which is actually shambolic anyway, I'll tell you that MTN and Airtel, I'm preparing to go and meet their bosses. Their penetration rates are appalling. Their quality of service are appalling. Their prices are too high. Their systems are merely rip-off Uganda. And a UPC government would have, as part of their contractual thing, provided them license conditional on reaching most parts of this country. In my home in Agongera now, I think one of them, they've turned the heads of those other machines of theirs. In Nagongera, I do not have internet. In Nagongera, I've got to go under my beautiful mango tree in order to make a phone call on MTN. That's in Nagongera. It is worse in some of these northern spaces. Now, I don't know who is the minister responsible. I don't know who is the permanent secretary responsible for these other things. And I don't know who regulates these organizations. The regulators of these things will want to try and check whether or not you've talked about Mr. Museveni's suit, rather than whether or not these companies or organizations are providing the service that people need. So my point is, if internet is tricky, if electricity is tricky, then the social media access, the alternative media spaces for people to reach, even in those places where these days it's not easy, actually, in an average place in Dokolo, for someone to use their 1,000 shillings because they want to listen to a program on their phones. There are not many people with smartphones. I'm broadening this thing for you.
Yes.
The things that we take for granted. I met two equivalent of district chairpersons for UPC, and none of them had a smartphone. And so, meaning that certain communication mind can only be, we can't access it. So now those are district chairpersons. What about constituency chairpersons?
And those are, by the way, the majority of Ugandans.
And they are the majority of Ugandans. And then those fantastic people whom I met in the rallies, you see, and most of them are women. You see ordinary women. Of the good proportion of the 300 or so who turned up, in fact, the second rally was probably bigger, 200, 300 or so people who were there, of those women, definitely more than 70% of them don't have a phone.
Yeah.
And meaning that they don't have a phone and their households don't have a phone, let alone they themselves, because they themselves supposed to be about 90%. You see why Museveni continues ruling them through ignorance. And Museveni continues to do so because he impoverished them first. Did you know that under the previous UPC administration, it was so advanced that we had a monthly, it might look funny, but monthly film shows at Gomla headquarters across the country. In Agongro, the 26th of every month, where free television, free programs, film, are shown, agriculture and everything else, and current affairs, on that particular date of the month, and so these guys would come with their filming thing. So if it was that government was providing that in the 60s and 70s and part of the 80s, you can imagine what government would today be able to do. In any case, Rwanda subsidizes this. The stories about free laptops and access to internet. Why should any secondary school, why should any public secondary school not have an internet link in this country? And by the way, if you talk about our 10 trillion, by them, today I'm not going to have supper. Honestly, I'm not going to have supper. And that's how much annoyed I am. But I'm going to use that to invoke my Jesus. So then how many young people have got access to the internet? A nephew of mine did his A-level. He did quite well considering his hard circumstances. One of my cousin's sons in one of the very rural schools and struggled very, very heavy to reach where he is. But, and this boy just got a smartphone the other day. And you really see his struggles to be able to top, is it 500 GBs, something like that? To be able to roll one or two videos. We are talking how we're able to turn around people. The majority of people are literally locked by ended circumstances of poverty, deliberately misinformation. The next other time people turn up in the villages are these guys who turn up in Land Cruisers, and they're either from some stolen rice, pilau, or stolen mabati, and the people are so healthy. When I say healthy, they're so large or whatever kind of stuff. And all their money, their public money, and those people turn up and then say, "Oh, you're just leaving us like that," and then people, leave 5,000 shillings, and 3,000 goes to drunkards, and 3,000 goes to 6 women who are there and they share 500, and they actually clap.
They do.
They
do because they didn't have that. But here, my problem is this: that has happened, and of course,
it happened.
By and large, we will blame the government because it should be doing better.
We will. They are responsible.
We do. Yes, we do. My problem is one, that those who are posturing as the saviors are doing relatively the same thing. It is my problem.
Oh, I see.
Like, how they say, better a devil you know than an angel you do not. That's why people keep going back to the NRM, because they've gotten used, they know what to expect. The angels that are posturing as angels are relatively doing the same thing, just this time under the blankets. How do we get out of that?
You know what? In business, and one of my mentees is doing very well as a head of risks, in banking. And when you talk about risks, there's guys who will be in charge of, and that one, if he, that's equivalent of a top governor bank of Uganda, and he would do excellent job. By the way, a Ugandan citizen, but wasting elsewhere abroad, and is my little mentee, not little, guy of age. What should I say? Anyway, to succeed in business, to succeed in politics, and to succeed to be a Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and all this kind of stuff, and to be a Mukwano, and to be even a Sudhir man, like you have to be prepared to take risks. So Ugandans must be prepared to begin to take risks, and I'm beginning to feel sad by that dangerous expression of yours, better the devil you know.
That's what people do.
No, that's what they're saying, but that's why I'm trying to cancel it. You know, I want you to stop doing that. I want you to encourage me, to encourage them on my behalf, that the devil, you know, is so terrible, you know, you know, that I'm not sure in any case, you know where the devil's taking you. You know the devil, but you don't know where it's taking you. And so we need to tell Ugandans that actually you must, if you don't try, you don't get it. And so since the possibility of getting better is 50-50, if you want to narrow it to that, you know, the possibility of getting better, the other devil being better, because it's 50-50, you don't know which one. This one just because you know it, you know, is worth a trial. Because we've been with this crude, dubious devil from Luweero bushes. The other day I passed Luweero. You guys passed Luweero. Have you been to Luweero recently? By the people of Luweero. Luweero, you guys, I can't believe this, man. No, I've been to Luweero. Within the last 1 week, you look at Luweero, and you look at Museveni, and you look at Utafire, and you look at whatever, Tinyebe, Obote. So sometimes you want to say something bad. No. This devil, 38 years. No, surely, no. We better try 50% likelihood. But I want to tell you, I'm confident. Rogers, there is no administration that replaces Museveni that will be worse.
It might be.
Rogers, can I repeat this? You come to me, you want us to bid? I'll give you a cow. No. There is no administration post Museveni. You know? There is no currently an administration that replaces Museveni that can be worse. Not with the cumulative thing that NRS has done in this country. There's none. It's not possible. So Ugandans, there is no circumstance under which an administration that replaces Museveni is worse than Museveni is. It does worse than Museveni. It's not. Now,
my reasons why I sort of am stuck on this thing is one, that and during this parliamentary exhibition and whatnot, around that time when the new leader of opposition took office, he was getting into the Lubowa issue, 590 billion Uganda shillings. He moved from the investigations into that Lubowa to lynching Mpoga for 500 million from Masaka. So with that picture, and with the people and the way they have moved away from the important stuff and moved to the most minute ones, how do I get that assurance that post Museveni there is going to be a better leadership?
Because post Museveni does not have to be Senyonyi.
Yeah, it certainly won't be.
Because
but the reason why
I'm saying that is to detox our minds from making it sometimes so mechanized that we get ourselves limited. You know. And then number two, I just want to use that example here. Here we are talking about Munyonyo, 550 and 90 billion. That's 600 billion Uganda shillings. That is extremely excessively criminal. Extraordinary.
Absolutely.
Ugandans, 600 billion Uganda shillings under UPC administration. You will see change. Across this country, you will see a national impact. Rogers, give a UPC administration under Ochieno 600 billion Uganda shillings as government is business going as normal. You know, don't ask me what I'll do. Whatever we do with it, there would be a national impact. Well,
and yet the people who are postulating
hang on a sec. Now, that's a huge amount of money. But then to suggest that for that reason, 500 million shillings should be a non-issue, I reject that.
No, I'm not saying it should not be.
Let me conclude with this. Rogers, I have just told you that I've been in the north and east of this country, where I find people for whom 500 shillings is a matter of life and death.
Yes.
Think about it.
That's true.
So we shouldn't convolute this debate. Ugandans just need to wake up. It's not either or. But I totally agree with you. Who was Museveni anyway in 1980? This is a reject from Munyabushozi. Think about it. Who was it? He was so risky. You know, Ugandans were not prepared to have him until he went through the bush and then came by force. So think about it. Because this devil, can be a blackmail thing. No, that is yours. Because it's not, I don't like groups, it's a common narrative. But we are trying to kill it. This Museveni reject by 1985, Museveni had been chased away from Luwero. I know they ran this narrative that they did. No, they didn't defeat the UNLA. No. UNLA brought them in as part of their deal between Museveni, DP, the other NRA, Bush fighting forces, whatever the kind of, to get rid of the UPC government 6 months for elections. That is how Museveni stumbled into power. Museveni stumbled into power. So who was he? Such a risky venture, but he came into here and is ruled for 38 years. So we cannot, on the basis of this alone, dismiss anybody else as being able to do better. But I might ask me that we came and then did terrible things, But it came and ruled for 38 years and they bossed over it. I'm simply saying it's very unlikely that anybody who replaced Museveni would do worse. And in part because I am convinced that in this country, so that when people come into government, it's not necessarily how you measure them. Some of them don't even know how to put on jackets. Like in Museveni's case, they came from the bush. One of your guests says that they came with one slippers. These other guys were bossing 10. They came with one slippers, one of them, and I saw them. Another on blue slippers, another on a half tone. And now they own an entire Kampala. And they boast. They're boasting, the irritating thing. They're boasting they're boasting as a result of stolen public resources. And they think Ochieno will respect them. Until we meet Jesus. You see. So my point is this. A guy who did not even know how to, by then one of them said they didn't even have underwears. Maybe that's why they're stealing with impunity. Yeah. So some of them didn't even. So a guy did not have underwears. Now, rides, whatever kind of stuff. That's why sometimes they build houses with impunity. Some of them build houses, things, the hospital. So because they can't actually, the drive to accumulate wealth and accumulate resources in such a primitive way is so unsatiable that you can't just explain it. So for the rest of us Ugandans, most of us are very civilized people. We know how to put on, these things. We've always had underwears. For me, in Nagongara, I'm either barefooted or I'm putting on proper slippers. No, don't have slippers. So Uganda has people who can take this thing from Museveni and take it forward properly.
The opposition as it is now. For example, in the fiscal year 2023-24, the IGG collected about 14.8 billion from corrupt people.
My sister.
from corrupt people.
Yeah.
Do you think that the opposition as it is, and being the checks, doing the check and balances of government programs and processes, do you think they are also doing enough job?
No, they're not. They're not, and we're not. We're not doing enough. But we're not doing enough because in many cases we don't have the space. For me, today is the 18th.
Yes.
I should have been president of Uganda People's Congress from the 18th or thereabout of December 2020 for 3 years and a quarter. Yeah. I petitioned court on the 17th of March 2021, and I petitioned for a judicial review. A judicial review is you're a lawyer should not take more than 6 months. So it was 3 years yesterday under NRA. So Museveni wants me to go to the bush because we're going to use the judicial system. Museveni wants me to go to the bush. So you can imagine if I was Museveni, how many times I would have gone to the bush. How many other sub-regions would have suffered. By then Luwero is suffering. Luwero is suffering. The other day Mukagu was talking. Mukagu is now envying Gulu, but he doesn't know that Gulu was tortured, raped, burnt down. People lived in concentration camps for 20 years. So he's just envying the streets of Gulu. But no, Luwero, you see what I'm saying? So no, I think that, what was your question again?
No, my question, as coming from that IGG, In
Well,
the
and
first
is a
year,
report, yes.
in the first year of the parish development
Yeah.
model, about 590 million shillings got disappeared in the very first year. Now, moving to the IGG and how the office of the IGG itself. Now, we understand it has loopholes sometimes. It has its shortcomings. Sometimes it's going to be limited by even the same people, the big shots. But even with that limitation, those limitations, do you think that the opposition, doing the checks and balances of the government, are doing their best to...
No, no, not at all. But they talk about the IGG. A future UPC administration would possibly ban it to kill waste. As part of public service reforms, government reforms, maybe this is breaking news, possibly my administration would not need IGG.
I know.
Don't forget, because we didn't have IGG and UPC administrations. This is a creation of Museveni. Museveni created this office to hoodwink Ugandans. That's another way how Ugandans went sleeping.
Would you not have like any form of...
No.
Because, okay, you may not need IGG.
You're interrupting very quickly.
Okay, all right.
And it's a very important point.
Please go ahead.
And so you should have been fascinated. We never had IGG. The Inspector of Government, Museveni, remember there's a clip doing around that on I think 27th of August 1980, in his campaign somewhere, I think it was Western Uganda, that he said that that if people don't vote for his UPM for another thing because they're advocating against corruption or public sources, so be it, they'd rather not vote for them. So in other words, Museveni was saying that they were so godly clean that Pineti is but this what is Pineti? Is it a human being or what?
Pineti, they said, is it what? Italian investor or something?
Is he related to Museveni or what?
No, they said it's a white investor, so I do not know.
Okay.
I have no clue.
So anyway, the Inspector of Government, so Museveni was trying to bring this idea that, well, the past was dark, bad, we even have people who supervise government, so you don't have to. But no. So it's a waste of time. By the way, we knew Rosindana Augustine was the first IGG, and even for me as a Makerere student at the time, I find quite resentful. I knew it was a waste of time. No, you do not need an IGG to answer your question. You just need a government that does its job. You just need a civil service that works. You just need a permanent secretary that is in charge of government. That's the highest civil servant in a ministry. You just need a head of civil service, who coordinates and works. And those are civil services. You don't even need to know their names. And that's what you need to do. Where something has been stolen, you need to equip the police. In Atokotho Cholas, in fact, I want to say this again, Atokotho Cholas was very privileged, but it was very well attended by all top echelons of the police. Of course, that was their senior colleagues, so they had very high regard for him. They do have high regards for him. But in there, the top echelon of the police, and I told the number of the police chiefs that I met there, as part of what I've always said, including your program, that a future government would invest in the police rather than dubious things in whatever kind of stuff. So what a future government, a post-Museveni government needs is a lean government, a civil service that works, a civil service that is purely independent of polity. Independent of polity meaning that they do whatever they've got to do, and then they advise their political leaders. Political leaders take whatever decisions they've taken. And then after that, you also have given options. If you do this, the implications of ABC. That's all you need in government. I was looking at a clip the other day where Yona Kanyom was the late top former good friend of Cecilia Wells, with whom they're now in heaven, I hope, saying that, look, in 1983, Obote sent him to Cuba. And so when he came back, at one point we were actually at his home and at his home, yeah. So he actually told me some of the stories too at his home. Actually, ironically, I was also at his home, and he said that, look, he came back and he took 3 days. He hadn't done his accountability, and Obote summoned him. You know, do you need an IGG for that? So you don't need an IGG. So then when there's an incident reported, you know, if an irregularity in a department, you bring in police special branch, which Museveni killed. He killed it deliberately. Uganda's police special branch, go and do a research and invite me here. And you can invite me here with Museveni as deputy. Kind of stuff. Who's this deputy, by the way, or an assistant? you know, because Museveni won't come. You know, Uganda's police special branch were trained to the FBI standard. They were amongst the most respected law enforcement team on the continent, meaning ability to detect and to prevent crime. Ugandan Special Branch. Special Branch is a unit under the police. These days they've changed to Uganda Police Crime something. You know, I must also say that I've met somebody, including their head in recent times. Somebody related to that unit says they're doing much better today, to their credit, than they were a few years ago. So they're struggling to reclaim. But it was a shambolic mess when Museveni killed this thing. So you just basically need an effective police crime detection, law enforcement, and a team that basically works with the Director of Public Prosecution. And to prosecute thieves, you know, public servants know that, well, you play around with it, you know, you're held accountable and you have to pay for it. So you just need investment in the police, you need investment in the judiciary, and you need investment in skilling and training of public servants and public workers. You need opportunity to build capacity for people like yourselves and journalists in order to be able to become the enforcer, the fourth estate that informs and advises and informs and educates the public in terms of roles and responsibilities. That's all you need to do. You do not need an inspectorate of government.
But, so now that is true, and that I agree. But now, again, I'll go back to that question. How do we, now that it is here, we are not going to do away with it. How do we?
No, we will.
No, I mean for now, until then.
Yeah.
How do we, as the people, especially those who are checking the work of government, how can they use those institutions to do something?
At the moment, there's not much to do. At the moment, this country just needs change. There is nothing. We're changing posture. There is nothing. We can talk here until cows come home, whether they come from Rakatura or those who are stolen from Soroti. We can talk until cows come home. Okay? Things are not going to change in this country in as long as we have Museveni at the top. What we can do is try and check them a bit, you know, frustrate them, embarrass them a bit. That's what's going to happen. So I think Ugandans need to get the hard fact. This country is not going to change radically until Museveni retires.
I can't shake this one thing, that sometimes we ask the people, but also those who are leaders, the ones in the opposition, if I'm being particular, because the other ones cannot say much about, you know, their leader.
Shame on them.
Yes.
In a democracy, that's what should happen.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
But these ones, even those that are in the opposition, I feel like even themselves, they have resigned. That you know what, like the way you have said that, you know what, our problem is Museveni, and unless he lives here, we are going to still be in this mess. So in that sort of umbrella, a lot of them have sort of resigned and decided, you know what, this is not going to change.
No.
Even if I make so much noise. That's why some of them are now going into corruption, are getting corrupt themselves, because, you know what, this is not about to change, so might as well just
actually made that narrative as an argument early. But lest my message is mixed. I am saying because this country is not going to change until Museveni goes, because Museveni's regime is incapable of changing with Museveni as the head, because the problem quite clearly lies with Museveni at the top. You know? So common sense is this, that anybody who feels aggrieved and wants change, including the majority of people in NRA, you know, they should just rally around my message, and we compel and cause change in this country. The only thing change is, I want change that does not break Museveni's leg. Surely that is fair change. Surely. Change that does not break Museveni's leg. Change that does not break the leg of, you know, So anyway, that's all we want. So people, it's not that there's nothing for people to do. People should seek change. The idea that, you know, we wait for him to go, because now that is a cowardice. But in many times, some of those are hypocrites. in some cases, when if someone with related opposition, they're thieves.
Majority of them, by the way.
No, they're thieves. So many of these people who are doing these things, many of them, I would suggest, are doing it because they're comfortable in that theft. But I've told a few people that you're comfortable in that theft, but you don't know that you're designing, confining your children, to generations of slavery, slavery in the hands of possibly, unfortunately, maybe Chinese, Indian, and Pineti, and then a few privileged extended relatives of Museveni's control. Because that's what is being designed. It's almost like a monarchy, either so and so, whatever. So basically, if you want that, okay, let's wait. Let's wait for the change when Museveni goes, and then those arrangements come. But if you want a genuine Republic of Uganda, the way Tafere wants it, Tafere is my friend. If you want to change a genuine Republic of Uganda, the way Tafere wants, no. Let's, join Uganda People's Congress, send me messages and notes and things like that. Let's come together. Let's learn how to become leaders. Let's how to become campaigns. Let's learn how to become moderates. Let's learn not to abuse. Let's learn to deal with issues. Let's learn to carry out research. Let's learn to carry out evidence-based debate. Let's learn to tolerate one another, and particularly you, the majority of young people, learn to be responsible decent leaders, learn to own your country, learn to be slightly much more ambitious, learn to be jealous, learn to know that actually Kenya is moving forward, and for you guys are being sunk by NRA who told you lies that they're building your future. Learn that Rwanda is moving in a radically different direction, regardless of what's happening. But learn particularly many of these other countries that were poorer countries, at the time when UPC was moving you forward. Today, many of them are nearly moving to the moon, when for you just looking for not motorboats, but banana boats to cross the river. So that's terrible how it is.
Okay.
So wake up, Uganda.
It's you. In conclusion, as you make your concluding remarks, one for people who are in 2 days' time, Dokolo is going to be doing that. They're going to the polls, but also that message I wanted also to spread to the preparations, because now all the parties are going to hit the ground towards 2026 for how people need to look at their leaders and how they need to approach them for better. Now that you're telling them, look, you don't have to resign, tell them what is it they need to do and what should they look out for, and then we can conclude.
Yeah, I think it's important, it's very urgent that we hope that the majority of people in Dokolo and thankfully neighboring districts are supporting, particularly from UPC perspective, are supporting the colleagues in Dokolo to reclaim Dokolo for UPC, which was, as I said, our unopposed seat in 1980, and to remind them that actually, yes, whatever happened since 1980, they've never had it any better. And so they just need to return to Uganda People's Congress, but also to rebuild Uganda People's Congress from that base as we seek to rebuild Uganda People's Congress across the country for the future. That said, then, on the important concluding remarks that you seek, it is urgent then that from tonight we continuously examine our conscience. People rally around their conscience, feel what they genuinely want to this country, relate that with the existing political organizations, which one genuinely is closer to them, and in my opinion join them. Be actively involved with political parties and organizations of your choice, whatever they are. I believe, though, as that the political party of the future is Uganda People's Congress, so they should join Uganda People's Congress as the political party which is center-left, social-democratic driven, as it were. Do not think about our leadership at the moment as the biggest thing, but of course, those many, I know I inspire many of you guys come, but if you think about the internal conflicts of UPC, just the fact that some of my colleagues are neither here nor there, don't think about it. Think about what we represent rather than the leadership. But I'm going to address the leadership shortly. So do that. So if it's DP, go to DP and see how you can make your meaningful contributions there. But at the end of the day, why it's important for you to do so is that become part of the change, in that political organization, part of the preparatory process of then rebuilding the branch structures, those political structures, rebuilding the structures from branches to constituencies, to districts, and therefore national delegates conferences. By participating in at the local level of these political parties, you're able to become part of the imperative democratic structure that in case you come to Nambole, meaning wherever the national delegates conferences taking place with your party organization, not only do you have a vote, but you have a say. Not only do you have a say, you have an influence. Not only do you have an influence, you have a presence. And in many cases, by so doing, you will have a critical number of people that will possibly influence the direction of the kind of leadership that emerges. Don't forget that the leadership that emerges, not only in this case the president of the party, as some organizations call them chairman, who's even if you're using the word president because he thinks that's preserved for state house only, president of the party, but also the executive of the party. But more so, it is the nature of leadership then that emerge that will influence the direction in which the parties take when it comes to the manifestos. Manifestos there, of course, these are programs of the political parties, whatever they represent. So it's very, very important that you do so. Okay. But quickly, I want to see that these people doing this thing are predominantly younger people, Rogers. I want to see district chairpersons of your age group. I want to see constituency chairpersons of your age groups and younger. I want to see district chairpersons of your age group, but who are women. I want to see district chairpersons of your age group, saying, yes, we're in charge, not to boast, but actually being guided by many of the emerging people. Don't forget, as I said, we're losing people of age, and the sooner we're able to train and guide you guys and to provide you with the information and to check you, maybe in many cases possibly pinch you a bit when you've gone wrong and hail you guys, build your confidence and build your capacity, the better it will be for this country.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time and for being here. And one thing that, for me, I think that will stand out is the not resigning. And also the problem with many Ugandans that I'll mention is that they expect those leaders, whether in government or opposition,
to change.
Like, yeah, they are like, if this one is doing that, that's what I must do, or they must do. So I think one thing that I will go away with from this conversation today is that you don't resign, and it doesn't matter what position your leader is on. It's what is right and what do you deserve, and rally for that, run for it, and or die looking for it. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation from where we began, and thank you so much for making it a point every Monday evening to be able to join us in this conversation. My name again, as we conclude, Roger Storiabo with Mr. Ochieno, and on camera is Lillian Luwede and Jeremiah and Arnold in the control room to make sure that all of this conversation comes to you as it has. Thank you so much. Have yourselves a very good night.